These paint jobs forever changed the car world in the 1950s. We're talking about custom wild paint today. Let's get into the history. In the custom car scene in the 1940s and 1950s, the paint colors were pretty much one solid single color. They could have been a metallic or a solid color that's a non-metallic, or even a two-tone. But in the mid-1950s, things really started to change and get more artistic. There were early signs of custom paint showing up on hot rods and dry lake racers like this right here. One of the earliest publicly known radical paint jobs was on the Barris Customs Woody wagon, painted by Von Dutch in around 1953. He did a radical flame job on the front and very ornate pinstriping and artwork on the side of it. Another early radical paint job was on George Seen's 1932 Ford, customized by Barris Customs. It was worked on by Dean Jeffries and Von Dutch. So I did a ton of research and I found out that this truck owned by Bill Gaylord of Linwood, California is the earliest example of a radical scallop paint job. That truck came out in 1955. That was very early for very radical wild paint. And you can see it here at the Norwalk Car Show in 1955. With a sea of single colors, this truck sticks out like a sore thumb. It was a sign of the changes coming. Just 1 year later in 1956, this trend of radical painting exploded. You can see here above Larry Watson doing some scallops on a Chevy, and below this is a 56 Chevy painted by Dean Jeffries. By 1957, the trend of radical paint had evolved even further to even more wild shapes and designs, straying farther away from what we know as scallops. It's more of a pattern almost. This is that style of like you'd see at Roth doing in Southgate in around 1957. If you want to get into this radical paint history, someone to really look up is Larry Watson from Bellflower, California. This above shot from 1957 really sums up the radical painting and wild style from that time. From about 1958 to 1959 is really when this extremely wild paint took off and peaked. I would say these two cars are the perfect example of how far it could go. We have Jerry DeVito's Maze from San Jose, California on the bottom, and the top is St. Vasquez's 1950 Chevy from Long Beach, California. There was a trend that started in 1958 by Larry Watson. It was called panel paint. And the panel paint actually got radical as well from about 58 to 1960. These are two great examples of radical panel paint. We have Floyd DeBoer's 58 Pontiac on the bottom and Max Miller's 58 Impala on the top. So 1961 was pretty much the end of the line for the radical wild paint jobs of the late 1950s. But this is the style that was popular at the time, was more candy paint jobs, some metal flakes sprinkled in here and there. That's it. Radical paint didn't reappear until the late 1960s, early 1970s on custom cars during the early lowrider era. That wraps it up. This is a very important era for custom cars and paint history. Thank you.